Welcome to the Wodcast,
where we explore the power and beauty of words.
We're your hosts. I'm Mabel.
And I'm Ben.
And today's guest is poet and author David Larbi.
Let's get into the words. Welcome, David Larbi, to the Wodcast, where we explore the power and beauty of words. You're a poet and a writer, and we're delighted to sit down with you. For the first question, I would like to know, what's your word of the day?
My word of today is anodyne.
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 It's one of those words that I'd seen come up. You know those words that you see regularly in your reading or your consumption of, something, and you can contextually understand what it is, but you don't actually have a definition for it. Came up in a book I was reading the other day, and I actually went to the dictionary to look for it, and it kind of means dull or banal. So kind of like anodyne music playing whilst you're left on hold. And I really enjoyed that word because I think I tend to enjoy words that are expected to bring forth more what we think of as positive emotions. But I actually quite like that word because it has such a good use. And the dictionary example was anodyne music. And the first thing I thought of was kind of being on hold to HMRC. And the music just keep you there.
Why don't they play good music? Yeah. Why is it always so dull?
Maybe because they're not trying to pretend to be anything they're not, It's an anodyne task to check up on your taxes. So anodyne music fits.
So elevator music, would that be anodyne?
I suppose so. Dependent on taste.
And the elevator, I guess.
Yeah, the location of the elevator, yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you. That's a great word. And I think we start off the episodes by reflecting on the past, right? The early memories. And we were wondering if there is one word, one theme that appeared in your life early on.
That's a really lovely question. I think joy is probably the biggest one. It's a very small word with obviously a lot of meaning and great impact. And when I think of the work and the writing that I do now and how central a theme it is to everything that I do, I think that's been clear throughout my life. It's been clear throughout my life how much that's been something I've kind of leaned towards or wanted to find. I'm one of 5 children. My mum is a writer herself. That's kind of where we all got it from. We're all avid readers, and anything that we've done or anything we've been in pursuit of has always been to feel some kind of joy. And when I say that, I don't mean it on necessarily the most grand of scales. I just mean in terms of enjoying your everyday life. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I feel like you are a kind of ambassador for joy in the world, which we definitely welcome at this time. And when you were younger, when did you realize words could do more than just communicate?
I think when I was in year 4, and this is a very specific time to remember. It's attached to a specific memory. When I was in year 4, so I was 8 years old, so in our primary school, around every month, the display in the entrance hall of the school would change, and there was a different class in charge of creating the display. And I think at that age, drawing and arts and crafts are very much part of what you do as part of the general curriculum. And my best friend was amazing at drawing, to the point where I didn't feel like I was good at drawing because they were so good at drawing. And when it came to my contribution to this display, I was like, I don't really necessarily want to draw anything because it's not going to be as good as that. So what's the point? And my teacher said you could do anything. You can write something down. You can share anything. And I wrote a poem, which is the first time that I'd actually written a poem for a purpose other than for just myself. And my teacher really, really loved it and sent me to another teacher in the school to show my poem to them. And so I was like, wow, this is really affected somebody. That's really amazing. And I think that is when mentally, I think because we tend to respect the things that we can't do ourselves, I'd always thought of, art in terms of visual arts being way better than being able to write. But that's when writing kind of, to me, was like, oh no, this is on par. You can paint pictures in a very different way with words, even though there aren't any visual images to go with it.
Beautiful. And you've written some poems, haven't you, Ben?
Yeah, I guess the word poetry, what I enjoy about it is it's made up of try, right? So I think it's just about trying.
Yes.
And I think I'm still trying to figure out what is poetry and, where does it stand and where does it come from?
What's your current definition or feeling of it?
Well, I do have a poem with me. I am so excited to read, if I may.
I was hoping you would say that. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I was really hoping you would say that.
Excited to read it to you. It's by Don Marquis, who lived from 1878 until 1937. And it's called The Lesson of the Moth. Okay. I was talking to a moth the other evening. He was trying to break into an electric light bulb and fry himself on the wires. "Why do you fellows pull this stunt?" I asked him. "Because it is the conventional thing for moth? Or why? If that had been an uncovered candle instead of an electric light bulb, you would now be a small, unsightly cinder. Have you no sense?" "Plenty of it," he answered, "but at times we get tired of using it. We get bored with the routine and crave beauty and excitement. Fire is beautiful, and we know that if we get too close, it will kill us. But what does that matter if it is better? It is better to be happy for a moment and be burnt up with beauty than to live a long time and be bored all the while. So we wad all our life up into one little roll, and then we shoot the roll that is what is life is for. It is better to be a part of beauty for one instant and then cease to exist than to exist forever and never be a part of beauty. Our attitude toward life is come easy, go easy. We're like human beings used to be before they became too civilized to enjoy themselves. And before I could argue him out of his philosophy, he went and immolated himself on a patent cigar lighter. I do not agree with him. Myself, I would rather have half the happiness and twice the longevity. But at the same time, I wish there was something I wanted as badly as he wanted to fry himself."
Wow. Beautiful recitation.
Thank you. This is for you.
Thank you. I will keep this. Thank you.
I guess when I did my research for today, I came across your book, Frequently Happy. And this poem just appeared because I read it a few years ago, and it talks about happiness in a very different way.
Yeah.
It talks about its intensity, and I was hoping to hear your reflections on this poem.
Wonderfully chosen poem. That poem makes me feel a lot of things, which is my criteria for a poem I enjoy. Whether it's good things or bad things, or things that, if it provokes an emotional reaction, I find myself thinking about how I feel about it rather than what it's about. That's what I feel like. That's a poem I enjoyed. So I really very much enjoyed that. And I'm currently thinking, do I agree with the moth or with the author? Do I feel like it's Shakespearean, isn't it? Kind of the better to have loved and have lost, or better to have chased happiness and felt it for a moment than to have lived an anodyne existence.
Anodyne existence.
And I think I agree with the moth. But where our opinions would differ would be that I wouldn't say one has to self-immolate to feel happiness. One of my biggest philosophies on happiness generally is that happiness comes from contentment. Well, we're not supposed to be happy all the time anyway, but happiness comes from contentment, and we have access to contentment a lot earlier than a lot of us realize, I think. My general thinking is if I can smile about 5 average things on an average day, my quality of life is good enough that I can enjoy it and I'm allowed to enjoy it. I also think that everything we do to further ourselves, to better ourselves, or to find more happiness in life should come from a place of knowing that we have inherent value and seeking to maximize that value, rather than looking to earn or gain a value that we don't have through achievement and finding that quote unquote happiness. And that, I think, feels like the kind of happiness that the moth is chasing there, where it's, something that burns me up and consumes me entirely. I don't think that's necessary to be happy.
Do you have this kind of consuming happiness, like something that, like the moth describes this fire? Is this something that you blindly go into to just, I guess, go all up in flames in enjoyment?
I actually, since poetry and content creation became my full-time form of employment, or my full-time job, full-time work, that's how I treated that. I suffered a really bad burnout and had a lot of physical illness 2 or so years ago, 2024. And that came from a period of basically 3 years non-stop working, because I loved everything I was doing so much. I'd never been in that position before. I'd been in a position where I'd non-stop worked because I had to, but never because wow, I love the things I'm doing so much. I feel like I'm providing value. I feel like there are more and more opportunities. I never want to say no to anything, so I'm just going to do everything. I've never been there before and burned out entirely to the point where I couldn't do anything at all.
Yeah.
I think that is a big, if you read me that poem 3 years ago, I would have been with the moth. Right? Yeah,
I'm the moth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is, if that's how I'm going to go out, that would be a noble death. But I realize it's kind of, it's actually rather ignoble. Like there's nothing noble about, doing that to myself unnecessarily.
I was just going to say, it's such a powerful energy, joy. It feels to me almost like fireworks. And if you just keep following sometimes bliss and joy, which is occurring naturally, it can almost remove you from your body and you can become disembodied, I found in my life. And I'm just curious to know how you relate to that word, embodied and disembodied, in relationship to your joy taking you out of yourself, that your body got sick.
Yes, I think that, wow, that's a brilliant articulation. And I would never, you've actually made that make a lot more sense to me than it ever has.
Cool.
Because, because I think the way when I look or reflect on my life and think of the times when I've enjoyed myself most or been most content, it's been when I've been most present. Even if being present means sitting in more and more difficult emotion, or gone through a season of sadness. And I've also, that, I guess when sadness becomes angst or introspection, where you are so aware of the feeling, the feeling is so potent that to even sit in it, despite it not being a necessarily pleasant emotion, sitting in it itself brings some kind of almost perverse satisfaction, because you're feeling it so strongly, and at least this is a real representation of what I'm going through, mind, body, and spirit. I think being able to access a whole new level of joy and then chasing that constantly and knowing where I'm able to find it. So constantly trying to be there rather than being present in what I'm feeling, even if it doesn't align with that. I think, yes, that really, was living a disembodied existence, to the point where my body said, come back. you have to come back. I'd never seen it that way before, but you've really opened a new part of my mind.
Thank you. I mean, as your work does for us, and I'm sure many people, I think a lot of people don't consider the language of the body, something I'm really interested in. As you experienced in the story you told us, there is a language that's being spoken to us through our bodies, and we just don't listen. But that's perhaps another conversation, because it's just something I'm very, very interested in my own life, is what is the language of the unspoken, of the unseen in many ways.
Do you have something that's unseen or unsaid, or both, that you think needs to be more?
Yeah, I think it's actually just that, which is the body is communicating with us in a very subtle but very important language that we must learn to listen to. And I think, unfortunately, as children and then adults, we are not tuned into that, let's call it radio frequency, because it's not of the mind. It's something that one can only access when one actually, I think, clears the mind a bit. I know in your work, you do a lot of meditations, a lot of relaxing the body as you go into talking to people or bringing people into a poem. And I feel like when you listen to a poem and you're not listening from the mind, you're listening from the body, it can actually resource and recharge you in ways that listening from the mind can't. And so I just wonder if we'd all be much more energized and much more in presence if we learnt the language of the body.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm very inclined to agree with you. As you said, a lot of my poetry, and even when I do anything, I think in person as well, the first thing that I do will be a short breath exercise or something, just to bring everybody into the room. I don't know about you guys, but especially living busy lives, having many things on your to-do list, etc., it's very easy to slip into a mode where you're kind of living according to a checklist, and then every room you enter is just the next thing on the checklist. So again, finding a moment to have that presence before I do something which I really love and enjoy, want everyone to feel part of, which is poetry and words, and actually letting the words affect you the way that they should. But I would love it to be the case that whenever someone reads a poem for the first time, that is the only thing that's on their mind, and that informs them of something, rather than sits as just another thing they've heard or another thing that's in their day, if that makes sense. One of the nicest things that I ever get told when I share my poetry on social media or when I meet someone who's read the book is when they say, oh, I found myself X, Y, Z. I found myself feeling this. I found myself smiling. I found myself thinking about this subject, because I think that's one of the wonderful things about language and poetry. It informs us regularly, things that we wouldn't know that we think or feel. Someone will say something or given the correct stimulus, which is hopefully a creative one and one that makes you explore something within yourself. It can just show you parts of yourself that you didn't know or illuminate things that you wouldn't have seen otherwise.
So true. And also how when, for example, your body knows something's off, right? And you need some maybe more time for yourself. And then you are in this solitude space and you find, whether it's poetry or music with lyrics that just describe what you're feeling, and it's written by someone else, maybe 100 years ago. And the words, they kind of carry the same feeling throughout centuries. It's just, I think it's wonderful. And it allows you to connect to, I guess, something outside of your own skin, which brings me so much comfort sometimes. And I think that's what you do with your work as well, because you help others to connect to joy of everyday life. And I mean, that's just wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. You actually just mentioned music. I have a question for both of you, actually, but I feel I know the answer, but I'd like to hear from both of you. When you listen to music, do you take it as an entire experience? Do you listen to the music more than the lyrics, or do you hear the lyrics as you listen to the music?
Wow, I think for me, music is an entire experience. I feel like the lyrics, though, like sometimes I go to workout classes in London and they're playing music and the lyrics are so derogatory towards women that I can't focus. I'm like, how am I supposed to feel empowered and good in this moment of spinning or doing whatever I'm doing when the words that are kind of coming into my consciousness are so derogatory? And so sometimes lyrics can throw me out of music very quickly. But generally, the sound and the song, to me, are kind of one whole. That is like a transmission, I would say. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I do agree. I think there are songs where maybe the music is not incredible, but the lyrics are so good that you can still listen to it and enjoy it. The other way around doesn't really work for me. Like if there's incredible melodies and beautiful music, so to speak, but the lyrics are just, awful, doesn't work, don't connect to you, then it's for me really difficult to then still enjoy the sound. I know that your background is also in music, right?
Yes, I used to do a lot of it. In fact, the first content I ever did that I thought I was doing loads of things at the beginning because I was just trying it. It was a Brave New World, and I was just I kind of didn't know why I created. So I was like, amazing book. So I thought, let me just try everything and kind of see what I enjoy and stick to that. And I started a series where I would talk about my favorite lyrics from songs, which is when I realized that a lot of people, I had no idea this was even what the lyric was saying, let alone that this is what it meant. Whereas for me, that was my first approach to a song. I know because of my interest in poetry and because I see lyricism as, another form of poetry. It was kind of like, I can't listen to a song and not hear what's being said. But equally, I was like, this is amazing. Like I get to talk about something that I do by default and people enjoy and hopefully get something new out of the songs that they already enjoy and already like. So yeah, and I think music is the thing that I enjoy other than reading. Listening to music is the activity I enjoy most. That's the form of art that I enjoy most. So when it came to where do I fit into the world artistically, if I want to make things, where do I sit? And then also I grew up playing the piano. All my siblings play at least one instrument, and music was kind of very heavy in our house. We all enjoy it very much together. I think naturally when I first started trying to find my creative feet, so to speak, music was the first thing that I went into. And then I think, through doing that kind of content and just through where my content naturally led me, I always noticed it's not so. I love music to consume for myself, but to actually create what I actually think I'm good at and what seems to mean most to people is the words and poetry. I think that's where my skills lie.
And do you have favorite lyrics? Like, I'd love to hear some of your favorite lyrics.
Wow, that's a big.
I know it's a tough question. Does any spring to mind?
Actually, one springs to mind. I think because I'm talking about my siblings. Last year I went to see. Do you know Ben Howard?
Yeah, folk, very folky.
Very
yeah,
folk.
love
and
Ben Howard.
I love his lyricism. Mm-hmm. and he's got a song called Further Away, which I was listening to on the way here, actually. And God, what the lyrics of the opening verse? I've gone completely blank. That's so annoying. I'm really sorry.
We can find them. We can like transpose them into the image or something.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, yeah.
See the lyrics below now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lyric in the very first verse of Further Away by Ben Howard where it says, "The faces you see on the way up are those on the way back down, my friend," which is a really beautiful statement. And especially, I remember hearing it when I was younger and thinking, for someone who's in a position of objective success, for that to be his approach and his attitude to life, I just really enjoy. But yeah, I think an artist's lyrics just says a lot about them and how they view the world. And also it's a way for them to say things they wouldn't necessarily say otherwise. And one of the things I really find super fascinating about any kind of artist is, you know, their art does the talking for them, and their way to sit them down and have a conversation is almost, they're not saying the same things. And it might surprise some people, but it's almost like, no, that was the vehicle for them to channel that emotional, that thought or that feeling. And they've got it out there because they wouldn't be able to do it anywhere else. And I think that's some kind of magic, really.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely magic, yeah. Isn't it Taylor Swift who said, there's no rules in poetry or love? I think it is, in poetry, as soon as words rhyme and they sound like, in a way, beautiful, you can just express all of yourself, which I think is the beauty of, I guess, art and creation, is that every part of you is welcome.
Yes.
And that is very special.
And actually, when we're talking about being fully embodied, I actually think one of the times where we feel that most is when we create freely. I think that's when we let instinct and desire and emotion take over so completely that sometimes, I'm sure you've had the feeling where you've made something and then you look back at it and realize things about yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas I've sometimes written something, and I've read my own writing back as if I didn't read it, but that's what I meant when I said that. I didn't even realize that I was living there. Wow. But in creating it, I've got it out. It exists somewhere else. Yeah.
It's a reflection back to you.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Like a mirror image. It's just extraordinary. And do you find that your words, when you use them in different contexts, they hold different meanings or reflections? So if you work across, you've written a book, you do your social media, not only speaking, but also writing. Would the same word fit in all of those mediums for you, or does the container change the context of the word?
The container changes the context. They're different canvases. If I do not paint at all, but I can imagine if I were to use kind of oils or watercolors or whatever canvas you use, and the material will change the overall effect of the finished painting. And that's how I feel about sharing my words in different spaces and different places. One of the things that I love most about where my work has led me is that I do get to present my work in a lot of different formats. Like in the last year since my book came out, obviously being an author means being in more traditional publishing spaces. I still have maintained posting online for content. I have done a TED Talk. I've gone into schools, and there are things that there's no one size fits all, but that also just brings constantly new and fresh versions of the same thought or the same feeling or the same work or the same poem sometimes, and changes it according to that format. And it all feels like also different parts of me. I feel like I'm becoming, I guess that's why experience adds so much to you as a person, because it adds different perspectives and views of your own thoughts and your own feelings, and builds you up and makes you more rounded and more able to communicate with more different people. But also it doesn't come from pandering or demeaning or being demeaning to anybody. It's rather the other way around. Having to think about other people's perspectives and wanting to communicate with them adds to you, because it makes you see the world from so many different things that it adds more to your life, you and your experience. So, and for that, your work then becomes even richer, because suddenly the next time I sit down to write, there are more perspectives in my head than there were last time. So I'm able to create something richer, more layered and more nuanced. Yes, it's special.
I was going to ask a question about the reflections. So how what you put out there is a reflection of a part of you, and you've been creating content for a few years now. I was wondering if there's something that you learned about yourself through that process where you're like, oh, I didn't realize I feel so strongly about X, Y, or Z. And then through the creation process, it came up more.
especially as I've done it for longer and longer. And as I've known that if I'm wanted, I'll create that. That's always, I mean, I will always want to create, but if I wanted, I'll share what I'm creating. Let me put it that way. I've realized more and more how important it is to me that people are always getting a part of me. I never feel worse than when I make something and feel like I was holding back on this, or I've just done this for the sake of it, or I haven't put 100% of my effort into this. Like it feels, I almost thought maybe it will get to a point where I've done enough good work that speaks for itself, and I can kind of not let things tick over, but just do what I need to do. But I think the more that I get to do, the less right that it never felt right in the first place, and the less right it feels, the more that I get to do. So with that realization is where I think that kind of embodiment and understanding how to take care of myself has become more and more important, because it's okay, if I want to show up for the rest of my life, and I'm always going to show up as myself as kind of my mandate towards myself and my work, then I really do need to make sure I'm taking care of myself and protecting myself enough that I'm always able to give from myself, from my authentic self. And that's a big, for so many reasons, for so many emotional reasons, that's a very difficult realization to have, because then it changes a lot of things. It changes a lot of things. And I'd say the last 2 years really has been a huge exercise in learning what that looks like, and trial and error. And Jenny, I'm very happy to be on. It's something that I'm very excited, because it feels like, yeah, what else would I be doing otherwise? And what better is there to do? But definitely, I think how I show up to other people, and how I manage to make sure that I'm always my authentic self whilst maintaining and taking care of myself, is a real balancing act that I think I'm still working on quite a lot.
It does remind me of a poem.
Please.
If I may read it out
Please.
loud. The title is Setting Boundaries by David Larbi. I put my foot down today. I let the earth shake. But when it settled again, everything stable remained. I love it. It's by you. And I think it draws into the boundaries. And you spoke about your vulnerable self and sharing online. And I was curious how you, as a content creator, set the boundaries, because it's such an emotional, vulnerable space to be in. And how do you do that? How do you learn where to draw the boundaries, when to put your foot down, and let the earth shake?
Wanting to be someone who always shares authentically, I used to conflate that very much with being somebody who shares everything. And I've gradually, but very definitely learned the lesson that to create authentically doesn't mean to share everything with everybody. It means that anything that I do share has to be honest and real. But if it's better for me to keep things to myself, then that is a mark of respect for myself. And if I respect myself, I respect my community. It's very, like I said, it's very difficult to want to create authentic. And also sometimes there are things that I do have to say about. I might be going through a situation right now where I have something to say about this, and actually I could make content around this and share this with people. And I know it would go to a lot of people and make a difference to them and have the impact that I would want it to have. But I feel like later I might look back with regret on that, or think, well, maybe I've overshared, or it might make me feel a bit anxious. And that's where I kind of had to draw a line. My broad rule is, if I haven't processed it, I'm not posting about it.
Okay.
And that serves me very well, because I think, one, it's actually never too late to share about something. I can say, I went through this 5 years ago, and it will still have the impact. There'll be people going through it at that very moment anyway, so it'll be absolutely fine. What I can't do is go 5 years into the past and take back something I've told people already.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I approach it. And it's the approach that's serving me very well. And also, again, because I am lucky enough to have a real, genuine online community, I feel I have people who really care about me. They would much rather that things are that way. They're so respectful of all of those kinds of things. Like, for example, as I said, when I had quite a physical, emotional, mental breakdown a couple of years ago, and I had a shoulder operation around that time. I posted about the shoulder operation because I was in a sling for 3 months, so there was no way of hiding it. And I was like, I might as well, explain that I had an operation. But I didn't say anything about anything else going on, any of the health reasons, or even the cause of the injury. And nobody asked. Absolutely nobody asked. Because there was that level of respect for me. And it was, okay, if you want to talk about it, you will. but if you don't, we don't need to know. Just hope you're okay. Which for me was real evidence. And it was very humbling and so affirming in terms of I'd hoped that would be the case. And then I had the evidence that was the case. So now having had that, it's okay, I can move forward now knowing that this is how I should go about things because this is what the result will be.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. If it's not processed, it's not posted. I think there's a misconception that authenticity and simplicity is actually easy to come by. Simplicity, would you say, or would you agree, takes a lot of work?
It takes a lot. I feel like you get to a point of expertise and that's when you're able to simplify.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to be able to, especially when we're talking about creating content, even when it comes to, for example, when you share about this podcast and you post a video about it, we have had such a rich conversation. I'm enjoying myself very much, by the way. We're having such a wonderful conversation, and you need to pick a minute of it to kind of display what the depth of it, which you can't fully do, but you need to do it. But being people who create and know how to show people a bigger picture with just a small piece of work. That is a skill. Not everybody could watch an hour of podcast and be like, okay, this is the best minute to take that will entice people to go and watch the full hour. And then when it comes to a big idea I have or a big feeling I have, I want to write a poem about this. This is going to go in 8 lines. This is this is a feeling that I felt for 3 weeks. It needs to go into 8 lines. And
terrifying.
When I put it like that, it's really scary. Which again, where they're being within myself and kind of turning off my thoughts, having enough thought to articulate, but not so much thought that I'm thinking too much about how I articulate to myself. That's where that comes into play. And that is, again, years of practice, where now it's all, I think part of practice also is learning to quell fear and anxiety. I think a lot of the time our mind springs way too far forward into the future. Oh, but what if this line is taking this, or what if it? None of that's happened yet. I actually have to make it exist first for there to be any problems at all. So even in execution and then making it digestible and accessible to other people, there's a lot of experience that has to go into that and a lot of expertise that has to go into that. I feel like being able to break something complex down into something very simple is such an act of skill. That's why I love children's books, actually. I think people who write children's literature and great children's literature are so brilliant because, again, to break down really complex structures or subjects for young minds is, a marvelous, marvelous skill. And I think the best children's books in literature and films are ones that adults enjoy as well. I think there are loads of films like when you go back and watch your favorite films from your childhood and you realize they've held up really well and you see the kind of really clever jokes that have been put in there that the kids won't necessarily understand, but the parents will get. I think I love seeing things like that because as adults, we think of things at the most complex scale. Like we've kind of learned everything that we've got all suddenly these ways that we look at the world. But then sometimes when we revert to looking at things in their simplest forms, it can bring home lessons and principles in ways that make us realize that we might have been overthinking things slightly, as we tend to do. Yeah.
It feels almost cyclical, right? You aim to make it very simple, but you have to go through all the experience, learn all those confusing words to then return to the children's books simplicity.
Exactly.
And I guess in my journey, learning more words has really helped me, like in this compression algorithm, right? If you feel something for 3 weeks and you try and get it down on 1 page, learning more words, they're kind of like my tools to express.
Yes.
And I saw that in your Frequently Happy, you dedicated to your teachers, I believe, who have taught you English.
Yes.
And I was curious to hear a bit more about whether, learning the word that can describe your feeling helps you feel the feeling more.
Yes, that's actually, absolutely. One of my favorite books is Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown.
I love that book.
Yes, gorgeous book. And I read that so I'm 28 now, I read that when I was 21. And that gave me access to a level of emotional vocabulary that is greatly to credit for how deeply I'm able to feel things now and discuss how I feel. Because it's very early in the book where she talks about how we've given limited vocabulary to describe our feelings as happy, sad, angry. But there are if those are kind of the umbrella terms, there are kind of mini words underneath those to better describe what we're feeling, and having a greater emotional vocabulary. Because even understanding how you feel yourself, even that's a task in itself. But having a bigger emotional vocabulary really helps with that undertaking, I think.
Atlas of the Heart. I need to go back to that book. It's
even as I'm saying, I've realised that I need to go back as well. Yeah.
I mean, having a map of our emotional landscape, so powerful. Such a useful tool.
Yeah.
So useful. And do you have a word, David, to describe where you're at in your career, in your life, in your emotional landscape right now? You know, you've had your book out for 1 year. It was a Sunday Times bestseller. Your community loves you. Our crew member Maddie, before you arrived, said when you appear on her feed, she feels immediately joyful, immediately calm. I mean, what a gift you are to people. And so I'm so curious, as I'm sure many of our listeners are, where are you at? What's life like for David right now?
Humbled is the word that I would have, because I think wanting to execute something and then living in the best case scenario after that is that you don't know what that's going to feel like until you're there, or even if that's going to happen. When I started posting content, when I wrote the book, everything I hoped it would do for people and the way that I hoped it would affect people is what exists now. And I think there was so much fear and concern and anxiety before that now that's obviously gone and the best case scenario has come. First of all, what do you do now those feelings are gone? What do you do with that emotional space that's out there? And how do you accept? Because all I want to do right now is work. I mean, I've talked so much about how I've kind of worked to a better place of, but generally that's kind of me. It would feel like regression, but it's my instinct is what I've kind of always done. It's like, you must work to earn these things. I know I did the work that's earned these things, but I feel like, okay, now I need to work even harder to prove that I deserve them, and to give people are giving me so much. I want to give so much more back to them. And the thing that I kind of regularly tell myself is, no, people don't love you in a transactional way, or people don't love the things I do in a transactional way. It's because I've done something already that people are being so kind, and I'm very capable of producing more things that hopefully will make them feel in the same way in good time. One of the things I'm trying to do very much is enjoy what exists now and feel the contentment that exists now. I'm I'm really proud of my book. I'm really proud of Frequently Happy. When I finished writing it, it's the first time that I've ever written anything on that scale. It's something that's going to be, that's in print and I can't go back and edit and change. And I wondered how I would feel afterwards. But just over a year afterwards, I feel even happier with it. It feels like the best that I could possibly have done then. And I feel like I could write something as good, or something that's as good in a different way now. I was going to say better, but I don't think that really exists when it comes to creativity. I think you just evolve rather than you are worse and you're better now. Yeah, all I want to do is give back by means of, taking care of myself well and creating more things that make people feel that way. I think all of us generally as people just want to leave a net positive effect on the world. And that's all I want to do too. Like, I just really want to have done more good and affected people more positively than have taken from people or made mistakes, really. So sometimes this position feels very precious in a positive sense, but also in kind of Fabergé egg sense. I don't want to drop it.
And this book title, Frequently Happy, I'm really curious about this adverb, frequently. Why not sometimes? Why not occasionally or always? Why did you choose frequently? What's the kind of intention behind that?
So, not always, because that's, I think, unhealthy. To want to always be happy is an unattainable goal, not one that we should seek. I think it also undermines, like I said, the inherent value that I think we all have to want to always be happy. I think it's okay for you not to always be happy. It's not a moral failing to feel anything other than happiness. I also didn't say sometimes, because though the kind of it's not sometimes, occasionally are synonymous, that's not good enough for you and for the people who read the book. I want more for you than that. Frequently. Frequently isn't all the time, but it's more than sometimes. Yeah. And think it's there, like it's there, it exists, and it's very possible. The title comes from one of the poems of the book, the ending of which reads, "I always pay attention when a small joy grabs me. Some say easily pleased, I say frequently happy." And that comes from my general philosophy of there's always something to be happy about. Even, every day may not be good, but there's something good in every day. On the very worst days, there are a few things that make me feel better, even if that's something I do to ease the fact that that's not a good day. I go to bed early because today has just been terrible and I can't wait to go to sleep. Even that, being in bed early, is something positive I've done for myself, and that's reason to be happy. So, yeah, frequently happy, because you don't have to be happy all the time, but there is happiness available where you are, and you deserve to feel it as often as you can. There's nothing too small to be happy about.
It reminds me of what Ben taught me, PMA.
You might have heard of PMA, the abbreviation for positive mental attitude. Yeah, I think I remember I went to uni first year, someone told me, this concept had just changed my life. I was like, I'm going to be PMA Ben. And that's what I was for. And then I realized the toxicity of always trying to be happy doesn't really work long. I guess I felt like the moth. I found my fire and got a bit too close.
I would say the thing that makes me happiest is feeling freedom from always having to be happy.
Yeah,
like, I know it's fine I know it's absolutely fine for me not to be. Like, it's not a moral failure. If I was sad for a week, it wouldn't impact my value as a human being. Like, it wouldn't. I'm not a terrible person. I'm not awful to the people around. I'm not good enough, and I don't have to snap out of it. It's actually okay for me to feel whatever I feel authentically. Yeah. When I felt that freedom is why I felt most allowed to be happy. It's like, okay, Joe, I can be sad, so might as well.
Paradox. Life is made up of so many paradoxes.
Really.
It's all a big paradox. I mean, it makes me, I wonder what you think about this notion that our capacity to feel joy is equal to our capacity to feel pain.
I instinctively want to say I agree. Actually, no, John, I think I do agree. The only thing I think is that situations that cause pain usually demand some kind of reaction. If I step on a nail, I need to pull the nail out of my foot. If I walk down the street unhindered, I don't think about it twice, because that's what I expected to happen. When positive things happen, or when happinesses occur, they don't really ask anything of us, they just are. And so if we don't make the active effort to sit in it and to feel it, they can very easily pass us by without recognition. Whereas the difficult things usually will demand some kind of action. I'm not happy in my job. I've had a terrible day. I've had an argument with someone. You feel like you need to do something about it. And usually you do need to do something about it. So they linger and stick with us for longer. And then even with the happiness, when things feel like they're going right, your mind will immediately turn to what's not going right. And then you need to address that too. And at what point do you allow yourself to say, enough is going right, that I don't need to address what I feel is going wrong? And that is such a subjective and such a personal thing, and such a journey of discovery, that a lot of people often don't even really arrive there at all for very long. And I think we all deserve to sit there for a bit longer than we let ourselves. I think a lot of people can relate to the thought or the feeling of, you've done something you wanted to do for ages, or you've achieved something you wanted to achieve for ages, or you've got something that you've wanted to get for ages, and that feeling fading far more quickly than you'd like, because you so quickly turn to the next thing. And being able to sit in that and enjoy the positives that come as much as we sit in the negatives or try to address those, I think that's one of the biggest keys to finding a good level of contentment in life.
This reminds me very much of how Stephen Fry reflected on the word happiness and how it relates to happen. So happiness happens, and he made it very eloquent. There's some etymology connection between those two words. And then it reminded me also, what was the word? Anodyne?
Anodyne.
So that happiness, when you are happy, it doesn't become some background music, some anodyne feeling that you're more like, it pulls you, like that you try to consciously pull you into the now, where you're like, I've worked for this so many years and now I'm here, like I'm going to allow myself to fully feel it. And I think that is something that we often forget.
I just want to say, you have both put in so much time and energy into spreading love about words in the online space, and it's just this moment. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you.
And I'm really excited for you two to meet, because it's such a similar. I love this word transmission. It's such a similar transmission of like the beauty in the small things that I think you both have in common.
Yeah, maybe there's a similar mission,
Yeah.
because there is so much to be joyful for, about, and grateful. And I guess I can only speak for myself, but for me, words are such a vehicle of expressing that. And there's so many beautiful words out there.
Never ending.
We just get to learn them and use them, and it makes me very happy frequently.
Truly. I think listening to Ben talk about words, I mean, I think it's always wonderful to watch and listen to someone talk about something they care about very much, to watch them light up and talk about something they care about very much. And I think it means even more when Ben does so, because it's something that I also happen to care about. So very much, I feel so connected to what you do and how you feel. Yeah.
And we're using the words to light up, right? And I guess that does remind me of the poem that we read earlier. And you also mentioned the burnout, right? So if you do get too close, and I appreciate you sharing it, because when you do find something that you truly connect to, you do risk this burnout. And I think then it's important to set your boundaries, to put your foot down and listen to your body, which is, I think, a lifelong journey and something that is exciting, because it's not the words that is leading it. It's the silence and the checking in on yourself.
Yeah, this is it. I think there's so much communication in silence. And I love the word you brought today, because anodyne music is one of my least favorite things in the whole world. Like, I notice it so much because I'm quite sensitive just generally. And so when I'm in a space and there's just this droll of background music, it really disturbs the enjoyment of silence and the information that lies in the silence. And, you know, the social media space, I guess this is a question for both of you, is obviously rife with so much content, so much communication, so many words. How do you think this sort of explosion that we've seen over the last, however long it's been, decade or so, into the online space either enhances our ability to connect to words or reduces it because there's so many words?
Because the target of each kind of social media entity is to keep you on there for as long as possible, I think it does really reduce the amount of value that you can extract from consuming it all the time. And like a genuine thought. So as someone who creates, I'm sure, Ben, you have this often where, because you're on there to post and you're on there to consume, and you always, if you're not careful, could end up doing twice the amount of hours on there. In the early stages of this being my full-time work, I really found myself spending far too much. I'm feeling utterly drained. Utterly drained from sitting down with a phone in my hand as well, not even from kind of any kind of healthy activity. And it really hit me that there's only so much value I can get every day from this, what is objectively has the power to be a wonderful thing. Without social media, I mean, all the wonderful work, we just literally talk about all the wonderful work that you do, Ben, for example, with everything that you post. And it would really hurt me to think of people not being able to take the value they should from the things that all these wonderful people are creating, simply because they're there for too long. they're in it for too long. Equally, it's so easy to be in it for too long because there is so much value. You feel like if I'm not there, if I'm not seeing it, or if I'm not part of what's going on right now, I'm going to miss out on it. And I think it's always kind of, we have to trust that whenever we go on there will be something of value, and actually realize that, as you said, actually to maximize that value, we also need to create our own silence. Like, I need to put my phone down and let things sit in the back of my mind and ruminate on certain things, and actually then create space for my own thoughts to be part of the conversation as well. I think when you're watching things and you're reading comment sections, you've got access to a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts. Again, everyone's thoughts and opinions are valuable, but we also need to know if the value is to then take hold and actually be worth something, we need to know what we're thinking and feeling about it. And for that, we need silence and we need boredom. We need to be bored. We need to sit down and be bored. I was reading an article on Substack the other day about how silence has reduced in our lives. Kind of, you go on the tube and you've got noise cancelling earphones, and sometimes you could have you might even have music in the shower, and then as you cook, you've got a podcast on. There's no second. I mean, the time when you think is when you lie down and try and go to sleep, and even then you're trying to banish the noise so that you can sleep, rather than because you actually want to spend time with your thoughts. And I think it's one of the things in the modern world that every generation of humanity has their issues to deal with. And for us, I think it is just a lot of noise. And how do I create my own silence? And I think being able to create your own silence is one of the it's one of the responsibilities that we have to have healthy minds and healthy lives for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And in looking at or talking about this current dilemma of lots of noise and not enough silence, do you think there's a word that has lost its meaning that we need to kind of restore meaning to in this time, in this global situation of 2026?
Doubt. Yeah, I think doubt. I don't know about you, but I feel sometimes a pressure to know everything. And I think doubt leads to curiosity, which is one of our best qualities as human beings, being curious about things and wanting to find out. But I think we're so often afraid of not knowing things and of doubting things that we feel like we have to be certain or we have to know, to the point where we try and banish all doubt of everything. And I know this. I don't need to look into it. I don't need to read anymore. I don't need to learn anymore. Like, I know, but it's okay to be doubtful. It's okay to know that you don't know, because that's what leads to more questioning, which is ultimately a good thing.
It's very powerful. Doubt.
Yeah, so interesting. It makes me think too about the fact that when we are consuming information in a very shallow way, it's almost like we don't have space for curiosity, because it's like something has been presented to us, and in saying, oh, I don't understand or know, I might have to go do more work to access this point. We learn more about ourselves, the other, and the world. And I feel like it is something we could all be advocating for more.
I also feel like sometimes we don't make it easy for each other either, because it's almost as soon as you have a doubt about something or you can't say something definitively, you want to get dismissed and put out of the conversation. Oh, you don't know enough. Like, you can't talk about this anymore.
Yeah.
Where how do any of us ever get to know about anything if we're not given the space to learn about it?
Yeah. Curiosity is a powerful thing. And a quote comes to mind, which is, love, curiosity, and hunger are the three impelling forces of life. And what stands out to me is impelling. Instead of compelling. And I looked it up. Compelling is forces from outside, forcing you or pushing you. And impelling is the force from within that draws you to something. And I think that's what love, curiosity, and hunger, they do.
Absolutely.
Curiosity and doubt. I didn't see that connection, but it makes so much sense, because if you're doubtful about something, and if you have the resources or the time, you can look into it. And then you become curious. And that's when I think the magic starts. Because if you're truly curious about something, you can get lost in it and find yourself again.
I bet that's about curiosity is where the magic starts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And are you feeling doubtful about anything? What are you doubting at the moment, David?
What am I doubting in a minute? So, as you said, I have wrote my first book, Sometimes bestseller, which is really amazing. I'm super, over the bit. You know, sometimes there are some things that you achieve and you kind of think, okay, yeah, that's cool. That wasn't everything that I thought it would be. The reason that this was a big deal was because it happened right at the end of my book tour, which is my first ever book tour. And that was one of the best experiences in my whole life. I went to 7 different cities, 4 of which I hadn't been to before, and to meet people who they're literally there because they've connected with my words and want to share with me their thoughts and feelings is, I would say it's a dream come true, but it's beyond anything I ever even dared to dream. So for that to be then kind of crowned with something that, being a Sunday Times bestseller, to be completely frank, makes it easier for me to write more books because it's like, okay, I've proven that I can sell a book well enough that you would let me do it again. So straight after that, doubt set in, where it's what do I actually know what I want to do next, or do I just want to write another book so I can just get back in, so I can recapture this feeling, or do I actually have something to say? And the only way to find that out was to write loads of different things and write loads of different proposals and write loads of different poetry and different paragraphs and different ideas and try and flesh those out more to see. The curiosity was, what do I actually have to say? I think one of the worst things, I think one of the easiest traps to fall into, and something I really never want to do, is to, like I said, make something for the sake of making something, even if that is something that I love writing. I would love to write a book, and I do feel like, it's because I have a level of skill that allows me to write something that's worth reading. I'm not saying that if I were to write something that I did for the sake of it, it wouldn't be of an objective level of quality that someone could read it and get something out of it. It's more, would this be reflective of me? Would this be authentic? Would this actually be of value? Would I be able to say to someone, you should buy this, it's of value? And I didn't know. I didn't know. So doubting myself, which used to be a cause for insecurity, is now an impelling force to discover.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Whether how much I believe in myself, whether I do. I think I'm there, by the way. I think I'm there. I've got my next idea on what I want to write next.
Oh, I'm sure everyone's very, very much looking forward to finding that out.
I hope so.
It reminds me of a conversation we had with Elif Shafak on the Wodcast, the Turkish author.
Yes.
And she described doubt and faith as two sides of the same coin. And the importance of doubt. She spoke about it in the global context of whether it's religious groups or organized kind of more authoritarian groups, how blind faith can be so destructive. And I think it's so interesting on that macro scale because it also applies on the micro, where blind faith in what you're doing can make you quite numb to the reality of curiosity or learning more or growing more. And so, I see a beautiful connection there between doubt and faith.
Through the coin analogy,
Yeah.
I really like that. And we spoke about the moment now. We said doubt and curiosity as being quite present. If we now jump years, maybe decades, maybe centuries into the future, I was wondering if there is a word you would like to be remembered by.
Giving. That's the recent, actually, no, generous. I think they kind of fit in similar things, but I use the word generous specifically because I literally got a comment yesterday where someone said, David, thank you for being so generous with your soul, which my initial and quite British reaction is to dismiss that. I'm like, oh, no, it's nothing. But
Sorry. Maybe I don't reason to apologize.
Exactly. But the reality of it is I spend almost every waking hour thinking about how I can give my best self to people through the things that I do. So truly, the fact that that's recognized by somebody is something that I want. As uncomfortable as it makes me to accept that, because it feels like too much to accept, equally, it is what I want. And I think if I'm honest with myself about my genuine desires, I think that means that I'll pursue them in a way that's actually healthy and serves me well and serves the people who I interact with well, rather than pretending that I don't want those things and then, not be my authentic self. So I think, hopefully generous. I hope people feel that. Whether they feel like it was enough or wasn't enough is another question, but I hope people feel that I gave everything that I had to give to hopefully bettering people's lives through what I do. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you, David.
Remarkable. And thank you for being so generous with your time and words.
Thank you for your generosity.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for joining us today at the Wodcast. We had the joy to sit down with David Larbi, who is an author, a writer, and overall a creative soul. What are your reflections on the conversation?
Oh, it was just such a joy to talk to David. I loved hearing about his relationship to authenticity and how through his poetry he tries to unearth something. But it takes a while for him to get there. I thought that was really beautiful how the poems come to him and the time and context in which he finds them. What about you, Ben?
I think it was his word of today that left the mark. It's a word that I've never heard before, and I think it's a really important one to know. So thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
And I guess for everyone else that is watching or listening, you can find us on all the social media platforms. Please do click the like or follow button. It would allow us to do many more of these. And we also have a newsletter. Why would people subscribe to the newsletter, Mia?
So on the newsletter, you can find out about our live events. We often share more words we love. And we're working with some amazing scientists in Switzerland, in Ben's universe, to bring some really cool word-related projects. And we won't say more than that, but the newsletter will be where you'll be updated about what's coming. So join us there. And thank you so much for listening.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.